Before I zoom you down to the slides, right? Maybe to give everyone a payment landscapes in terms of Singapore, right? I think traditionally Singapore payment landscape are highly dominated by the banks, which is the financial institution of the world. So they typically will do their cards issuance, and they also will do their merchant acquiring services, which they go to knock at the doors of the merchants to ask for whether they want to accept credit cards, and highly dominated is still credit cards, the last 10 to 20 years traditionally. So in view of that, OxPay entered the market in probably 15 years ago, just to be a reseller of the bank's merchant acquiring services. And then due to the recent years of at least 3 to 5 years ago, things are evolving very much. And that's where OxPay has a competitive advantage to start, doing the merchant acquiring business into the Singapore and also the region in terms of merchant acquiring. Now I'll dive in more to what we do at an operating regional basis. If I were to put you to the left side of the slide, there are about 4,000 plus merchants that we serve today in the region within Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand. If you can see the below, these are the traditional cards acceptance, be it Visa, MasterCard, American Express, JCB. These are classified under credit cards rails. Of course, you will see more deeper, we classify this Alipay, WeChat Pay as a Chinese payments method. And more recent is more of the local payment methods like GrabPay and PayNow. Of course, in different jurisdictions like Thailand, we have the Thai QR payment, which I can explain more in a wider basis. Above of the merchant serve 4,000, we cut across about in excess of 4,700 plus touch points today. And that also means that we are processing more than 300 million in terms of our annualized volume, right? Of course, the last one on the bottom right, it just basically shows that, currently as of today, we have license across 4 regions: Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia. These slides will demonstrate or rather present our Singapore payment license. To go a little bit further, Singapore payment license are governed by Monetary Authority of Singapore, which they deem as a Payment Service Act under Major Payment Institution License. We have possessed late last year, on the ability to process domestic and cross-border money transfer, as well as the license to do merchant acquiring, right? Of course, similarly in Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia as well, we have the similar license to allow us to operate in the country. To give you a little bit more context, right, where we want to be a Southeast Asia digital payments platform provider, we have plans to target more license across the region, predominantly between Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Australia within the next 2 years. Yeah, next slide, please. All right, this is an overview of how our payment processing volume trends over the last 3 to 4 years, where if I can zoom down more on the payment processing volume in 2019, that's where I think lots of noises and lots of hype on cashless payment, where Singapore government are giving a lot of initiative, right? That is where also our high. Apparently, I would say in the year of 2020, when we hit COVID, evidently that doesn't allow us to go into the southward or the northward trend that goes up. We are quite hit by the COVID due to our tourist payment methods that we encompasses of this Alipay and WeChat Pay, as well as a lot of cross-border payments from the region, especially the Chinese. So that will serve us a decline in the way we do processing. However, I think stepping into first half of 2021, or at least late December last year, the company evolved and pivot to not just on the Chinese payment wallet and credit cards, but also to enable more local payments, the likes of GrabPay, which we recently enabled with one of the key merchants, as well as PayNow, eNets, where the majority of the volume is comprises of. Moving to the right, it also shows the number of merchants. Doesn't stop us from acquiring more merchants. Year on year, we actually have a very healthy trend upwards. Yeah. I think more importantly to the crowd here is where does the payment exactly flows from a technical perspective, and also to give you a more clearer picture of where do we make our revenue from in terms of the entire ecosystem. Right, there will be two parts of how we make our revenue. This is probably the very first part in terms of our product called merchant payments services. So if I were to jump into the slides, right, I can relate the orange terminal that you see earlier in the video. These are basically what we do. We acquire the merchants, we sign an agreement with them, and then we place it on the merchant premises, just like any retail outlets. And to start off with, you can visualize a consumer or a buyer wants to buy a merchandise worth of $100, right? And then it use a credit card, let's say a Visa credit cards, to tap on the merchant terminal. Once it's approved by the network, OxPay will settle $98 to the merchant itself. That we call it the settlement amount. Right, and obviously there is a $2 commissions that it will be split between OxPay, the payment network, in this case is Visa, as well as the issue bank. So if I were to relate, if this is a Citibank Visa issued card, OxPay out of the $2, 40 cents will be my revenue income, right? And then the network will take a 10 cent because of the Visa processing network platform. And of course, the issuer will get $1.50 out of the entire $2. So in short, that's how the ecosystem and the revenue distribution is being presented. Yep, and we'll move on to the next slide. Right. So this is the part two of how our revenue income is being earned, right? If you can imagine the same flow on this slide, the consumer similarly buys from a merchant in this place, right? Instead of just tabbing on the point of sales terminal, OxPay we have this digital commerce enabling solution to value add and to, I would say, give them more capabilities in terms of the end-to-end solution. Why do I say that? If I were to bring you to the entire circle or the ecosystem, I will give you an example. If other than the POS hardware that we deploy in the shop, right, similar to the orange color terminal you see, we provide inventory management on the we call it the electronic cash register. Basically, it's the screen that they use to touch and say, oh, I want to select product A and product B, how much is it? And then it links back to their inventory management application to allow them to do instantaneous update. Okay, that's one. Of course, data is something which is very big. It's in the hype for the last 3 to 5 years. We provide customer data analytics. To give you an example, right? We can, if a merchant wants to know what are the most sellable product within a period of time, from say August to October, we can then provide them the data analytics, like what kind of product, and to a certain extent, if we have the data for who are the demographics, from a wallet perspective, then we can also get the merchants to understand and do analytics for the purpose of driving more sales, do campaigns along this data management, right? And of course, we do loyalty programs, to go to CRM solutions, where we typically work with a lot of the existing merchants, loyalty program vendor, to allow them to be enabled on my terminal. Also, to give you an example, if I were to go to Watson, right? Watson wants to say, I want to redeem a voucher that I have. Instead of the physical, receiving a physical voucher, and put it in the drawer, they can actually use an e-voucher, okay, which save a lot of trees, and then redeem on our post of sales terminals. So this typically help them to digitize the entire end-to-end, and of course, performing all the reconciliations and the customer analytics on that, right? Okay. Yep. So to give you a little bit more of how, what are we serving in which kind of product and services, right? We do come across very much later on. I will show you the infographic of where our sector is. I would say very large in the retail space. It's more than 700 acceptance in Singapore, and also riding on the wave of the buy now pay later hype, right? We work with multiple buy now pay later service provider. You to know there are people like Hula, there are people like Atomy or Pace, which is quite prominent in the market. We work with them to enable their capability to accept buy now pay later from our point of sales to make a purchase from that perspective. Right. Okay. On the right side is our Hero Hippo, where we also leverage on the bandwagon in terms of offering payment solutions to the Facebook live selling or Facebook live auctions, where the key opinion leaders or the influencer have a pain point in how they accept money. They typically do it in bank transfer, which is very hard for them to do reconciliation. So we quickly pivot to offer these solutions to them to be able to accept digitally and also help them recon on the inventory management piece. Right. The next slide, please. All right. As I mentioned earlier, this is very much on the infographic to give you an overview of high level where our sectors are now maneuvering. As I mentioned, very much on the retail space, where you can see on the right side where we have, Watsons, Mango, we have Metro Departmental Store, we have Goldheart Jewelry, and of course, Zara itself comprises of the L Fulton Group, which comprises of multiple brands like Robinson, Marks and Spencer. And of course, we are expanding quite, organically with the personal care sector as well. And what we will be very focusing about, while we already have quite a decent size of retail, we wanted to expand our F&B sector as well. The last one on the below will be very much on our overseas merchants profile, which is quite diverse in the university, shared services, the charities, and also online e-commerce platform. Yep. All right. This was also an overview of, I would say, how much undervalued we are versus there are four competitor landscape here we are comparing, right? I will start with the right side, right? Stripe, Adyen, Nuvei. They are basically very much UK and US centric, which they are definitely global payments provider, serving mainly the online space and not so much on the offline space. If you were to narrow down to the target merchant size, right? They are also very into the large and global MNC. So definitely, this is somewhere that we are different niche from what they are doing. We are targeting on the SME space. I will focus more on GHL, where it's closer to us in the Southeast Asia region, where they are also both online and offline. However, they are headquartered in Malaysia, and I would say they are not as widely spread within the Southeast Asia as well, even though their volume is big. This also narrowed down and tell me that there's a lot of opportunity for OxPay to grow. Thank you. Right, I touched on basically, a couple of investment merits, right, in terms of why a Singapore digital payment company is a proxy to the rise of the region. I think given our company credibility in Singapore, the license, the governance, the compliance, as well as the touch point, and more importantly, the education and the support from the government. We talk about a lot of cashless payments, digital enablement within the SMEs and the consumer space. So that is where I think is a good start, or rather it's a good point to expand from here, not just within Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia, and also to widen the coverage for Philippines, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Right, that basically captures the majority of the Southeast Asian market. Yeah. Of course, is it easy to do this business? Tell me, it's not, right? Basically, why is it high barrier? One is definitely different country have different company or different regulations in terms of how they are conducting their payment landscape in the jurisdiction, right? So given that, right, we already have 4 to start off with that allow us to spearhead a lot of know-how and education to expand within the region. Other than the government regulatory as a high barrier of entry, right? We also talk about the tech enablement, right, where digitization is a high, I would say a high touch to globalize entire economy on scale. So given the technology know-how, this is not anyone in the IT space can actually enter into knowing to do this business. So if we have been in this business for 16 years, and I think there is a certain advantage that we have already in place to, I would say, accelerate from here. Yep. All right. O2O is a term that is quite widely used right now. What does that mean, right? Basically, we no longer just separate offline to online. Given that our establishment in terms of our technology platform, we allow both offline user, which is a person that is at the presence of in the shop, can technically do a purchase on through an online payment gateway, which also serve a lot of other avenues, like if this shop doesn't have this product, right, they can actually go online to buy from them, just like what Alibaba wants to do and have a retail space in Singapore. Very similar concept, right? Of course, then the entire platform will evolve around data analytics, where we capture most of the data as a value add and making it very sticky to the merchants and of course and the consumer. Yeah. The other one on the bottom, basically cross-border cost advantages. If I were to describe how is it cost advantages, right? Everyone would want to do cross-border remittances. Everyone would want to be able to serve the unbanked that has money to spend but not able to go through the rails because of the traditional multiple layers of intermediaries like the clearing bank, third party. So the ability of us to be able to have presence in the region, right, would allow us to be able to help, let's say, for example, a Thailand people in Singapore, let's say in Golden Mile, can actually use a Thailand PromptPay QR to make a purchase. And similarly, on any Singaporean that goes to, let's say, Platinum Mall, will be able to use OxPay Financial services to make a purchase in that premises. That's to give it a context, right? Okay, may I move to the next page? Yep. Why is this a merit? I think over the years we used to only be a referral agent to the bank or the credit card acquirer, but today we have evolved that we go direct to the acquirer, which means that we do not sign on with any second tier or third tier. If it's a Grab Pay, we work directly with Grab. If it's a Singtel Dash, we will work directly with Singtel Dash and have an agreement with them. That allow us to definitely have higher margin and higher control in terms of how we can do our commercial cost structure to the merchant itself, right? All right. Okay. Thank you. Right. Probably the last 2 slides, if I can remember, or 3 slides. Okay. M&A, something very exciting about this phase. Why do I want to do M&A? I think if I were to hire 10 people to go and hit the streets and gain our merchant share or merchant base, I think that is a lot of time being wasted. Knowing the business for the last decade from where I was, I think I can quickly identify a credible target M&A partner to work with in the likes of F&B, right? Well, to give you an example, if you know, there are a few online food ordering management software like Order or like Gets in the market that have served the online platform on the F&B space pretty well during the COVID-19 seasons. So I think they easily have, across 500 to 2,000 merchants that I find synergy to acquire or take a stake with them to be able for us to do a forward integration, right? Not just on the digital commerce enabling solutions, but also as well as the payment processing volume directly with them as well. Thank you. The next one. Okay. This basically summarized to what I have mentioned, but let's go a little bit more in the verticals, right? I think I saw someone asking whether are we doing crypto. Answer is yes. How do I want to do it? I think this is something currently that is highly sought after right now, right? I'm preparing myself, to ensure, what are the regulators are looking into, and as well as getting myself ready, not just on crypto, but also digital tokens in the likes of central bank digital currency, right? So the same rails will allow me to quickly pivot in the event that this space is open up and I can actually introduce to all my merchants to have a head start as well, right? Of course, given our network with the shareholding, which is one of the major shareholders is Oxley, right? This is a low-hanging fruit in terms of facility management that we can immediately adopt. MCSD is a big vertical that a lot of people, or even during my previous organizations, we wanted to enter. But with this current existing leverage, this allow me to actually take it as a low-lying fruit for me to acquire this channel. If I were to mention, you can imagine OxPay platform is easily available to allow the MCSD to take season parking, to pay rental fees, to pay management fees from that perspective, so on and so forth. Of course, I talk about buy now, pay later, partnering with all not just in Singapore, but also within the region in Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia. Right? Financing is a big part. I basically have the idea of, digitizing the financing part into my platform to act as a cross sell or value add to merchants who require financing across the lender that I work with. On the last part, which I mentioned a fair bit, which is also the expand market presence. Yeah. Right, near-term strategies. Other than my M&A, which I talked about earlier on in that particular segment, the key components is really building up a more stronger talents in the area of tech dev, development ops, UI UX, as well as forming more strategic partnership within the region that I want to expand. Right? Why is it a talent? Because it's a high-touch industry and it evolves very fast, and I think that will be the brain of my network infrastructure to allow me to scale faster and quicker. Yep, thanks.
Hi, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so let me run through our financials. So basically, this is our FY 2017 to FY 2019 financial result. So of course, I think what I need to highlight here is that you can see we have a very stable growth and healthy growth in terms of gross profit. Right. Next page. Thank you. Okay, so this is our most recent financial numbers. So of course, I think we will compare revenue first half 2020 versus first half 2021, gross profit, adjusted net income as well. Right. Of course, I think despite of the COVID, actually you can see we still manage, to hold on our revenue, especially of course our gross profit also quite healthy. Then looking at our adjusted income, we're also quite in par. Then of course I think I just want to highlight that for the first half 2021, okay, basically our net income is adjusted net income, okay, after we realign with our RTO expenses of 30 millions. Okay, all these number you can get it from our result announcements. Thank you. Next page. Thank you. Okay, so from here is our revenue contribution, okay, from the key geographical market. So of course we do at Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand. Okay, so so of course I think we are a local company. So you can see that most of our revenue are contributed from Singapore. Right, but of course, having said that, from first half 2021, Malaysia also doing very well. So they contributed about 46%, of the total group revenue. Next, please. Yep, this is our financial positions. So you can see we have our cash equivalents and compare with 31st of December 2021. So basically, there's a very healthy cash and cash equivalents. Then loan and borrowing, we're very low loan and borrowing. So at this point in time, it's less than $1 million. Okay, then asset liability, same thing, as those fintech companies. So basically, we're holding a very low amount of PPE. So at this point in time, we have less than $1 million of PPE, right? Then majority of asset will be our cash and cash equivalents. Thank you. Next page. Okay, so this is our cash flow. Okay, so basically, for the first half 2021, we have a net increase in cash about 9.4 million. Next, please. Okay. So this is our recent developments. Andy, do you want to touch base? You're on mute, Andy.
All right. Okay. Sorry, I was a bit off. Okay. On the recent development, if I may to elaborate a bit more, if you were to look into the news recently, we have a launch with GrabPay to enable Watson's island-wide in the acceptance, right? I think that cut across about 70 to 80 outlets. To give you a context, it's not that it's new enablement. Our terminals is already existingly with Watson's, right? So as I speak, yesterday is GrabPay, but we may have more, e-wallets players that want to leverage on our platform to be on board with Watson as well. So that's one of the exciting space that we are in. Of course, in Thailand, very much we are adding Rabbit Line to our payment platform, predominantly to expand our coverage for the Thailand market. The third one is also very recent, Eatbox. Eatbox is basically owned by Invade, right? Invade is perhaps more well known as Artbox, where they have they used to have their own tentage in MBS, which creates quite a hub on that. So we are basically the exclusive partner on not just the payment solution, but the end-to-end where it comprises of digital commerce enabling solution as well. So we are actually their exclusive partner to roll out all their upcoming, not just on the one in Tekka Mall, also the upcoming Eatbox concept. Yeah. The third one is basically mentioned earlier on, the university, one of the Malaysia's largest university in KL, as well as a private learning center that comprises of 16 branches nationwide. The last one will be one of the largest key implementation that we won is we call it MUIS. MUIS is a government non-profit organizations, right, that manage all the malls in Singapore. Yep.